Hey Thrivers, how's it going? So Heather Choate here with my awesome husband, Ben, and excited to have him back on. It's been a little while since, well, honestly, either of us did a live stream, but especially since Ben did one with me. So I'm excited to have him on with us today to answer some of the questions that we've received from you guys. I know I said I would do this at 1 Mountain Time. I'm moving it up an hour because I'm pregnant and I'm tired and I want to take a nap. It's the real reason. So after this, it's nap time for Heather. So I'm excited about that. Yeah, so we're in the middle of packing and moving and all of that stuff. So it's just a little bit crazy right now, but glad to be able to have this opportunity. By the way, if you can hear and see us okay, just go ahead and like this video, give us a thumbs up, let us know that you can see and hear us okay. We would appreciate that. So we had a question come in, and I'm not going to give names or specifics, but it was talking about a situation where in her marriage, this person had made some mistakes. Thanks for the thumbs up. I appreciate that. Keep that coming up so we know that you guys can hear us okay. And so she had made some serious mistakes in the relationship. And in turn, now her spouse wants to do some revenge behavior. We're just going to call it that. And this is something that when I posted yesterday, several of you commented on, and I really appreciate that. And the interesting thing is that many of you expressed that you had felt tempted to do the same. And I appreciate your vulnerability and your honesty there in showing that, because that is a very innate human reaction when someone hurts us really badly, that we kind of want to hurt them back. So we want to dive into that a little bit. Ben and we're going to attack it from kind of two different angles. First of all, the person who's been hurt. And if you're in that mode where you feel that impulse to kind of get revenge or do some of these behaviors to get back at your spouse. And then second, if you are the person that has made a wrong in your relationship and now your spouse is doing, the vengeful kind of behavior, what can you do in that situation? So first, we're going to talk about revenge behavior, what it is, why it comes up, and what the best options are. So like I said, that's a really innate human response. Let's take a minute to think about where that's really coming from. So when we have these traumas, these hurts that happen in our lives, it puts us into a very heightened emotional state, right? Into a lot of pain, a lot of anger, a lot of fear, a lot of frustration and disappointment. And one thing that's really important to know, it's okay to feel any kind of emotion as long as you don't get stuck there, right? So it's okay to be hurt. It's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to grieve. Those are all very healthy things. When it becomes unhealthy is when you stay stuck in that energy, because the choices that you make from that state are not going to be ones that serve you best in the long run. So Ben, whenever you have a comment, just go ahead and jump in. I don't want to take the whole thing, but
it's important to note before we get real deep into this that this is not by any means an exhaustive list of things you should be doing. But these things that we're going to talk about here are things that, well, you're going to see they're very logical. They're going to help. So starting from the person who it has been hurt, has been betrayed by their spouse due to infidelity or other hurts, and you're responding back with anger and vengefulness. I want to share just a quick story that can be applied to this that I experienced as a young man or boy. So I grew up on a 40-acre farm, and we had a bunch of cats to keep the mice down and so forth around, and some of them were litter mates and so forth. I found that, a couple of my brothers and myself found that if you take a cat and put a clothespin on its tail, okay, back when we would hang dry our clothes on the clothesline, you put a clothespin on the cat's tail and set it down, well, it kind of whines and screams and then bites off the clothespin and then runs off, offended, right? But if you take two cats, they could be best friends, and you put clothespins on both of their tails and put them in the same room in close proximity, they begin to fight each other. And they'll do that until they recognize, you know what, this cat isn't the source of my pain. It's something stuck on my tail. And that's kind of what we're doing by going vengefully, right? And taking actions in a revenge type of way. We are being counterproductive. We're trying to inflict pain on somewhere where we're perceiving the pain is coming from, but it's a misperception, if that makes sense, okay? And in all reality, just like that cat swatting the other cat, it's not going to help or relieve any of the pain you're experiencing. And in fact, it's going to increase the duration of your pain, as well as oftentimes increase the pain that you're going through, okay? So understanding where that pain is coming from helps us be able to make decisive and clear action rather than just swatting at the other cat because your tail hurts, if that makes sense, okay? So to put that more in layman's terms, never act in a way that you would not want to be portrayed or your character to be portrayed. When you leave, you know, is this not something that you want shared at your burial, that you acted out of vengeance with your spouse, no matter what they did? Is it, or do you want to be the person that that is forgiving and says, well, let's talk about why that happened so it doesn't happen again, and addresses the actual pains and the actual hurts caused by that and what caused them, so that we can go through it in a productive manner while actually saving self, right? Not destroying who you are or your own character, right? Let's not destroy ourselves because of the actions of another.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. That's a good analogy. Now, by no means are we condemning putting clothespins on cats' tails. By the way, condoning. We are condemning it. Yes. Thanks. See, that's why I have him. Yeah, no, I thought that was a funny story because I was such like the animal lover. I still am, but he grew up on a farm, so just a little bit of a difference in background there. But the analogy is really powerful. Is that you've been hurt, so that in turn you just want to go out and hurt others. So if you just take a step back, say, okay, this has hurt me so much, and give yourself that space to feel the pain, to feel the grief, and to go through that instead of staying stuck there. Way too often we get stuck in our pain. We get stuck in our grief or our stress, and we let that become the norm. And the problem is when we start to act from those places, we don't take actions that really move us forward. So like I'm saying, like, give yourself a space and a time to grieve and to go through that process. Because by no means are we belittling what has happened to you and the trauma that you may have experienced. But recognize that it has its place and make a choice to not stay there. You have to get to a place where you can take that breath, that deep breath, and look at things. And one of the most powerful questions you can ever ask yourself is, what is the outcome that I want? What is the outcome that I want? Okay, so they've hurt me badly. I still love this person deeply. I want them to understand how deeply this hurt me. And oftentimes when we get into that revenge behavior, that vengefulness, it's because we want them to feel the pain that we felt so they can understand us. We've talked about this before on some of our live streams, that the reasons why we do some of the things we do is simply because we want people to understand where we're coming from. That is a human emotional need, a very basic one. We all want to feel understood. And that's one of the most beautiful things that you can have in a relationship, is when someone understands you. How good does that feel, right? So knowing that you want to be understood. Okay, do I have to do this behavior to feel understood? No, I don't. What's another way I could have them understand me and where this is coming from? And as you ask those kind of questions, you're going to get the better, the better answers to those and better action and direction on how to get that need fulfilled. And another thing is, who do I really want to be? What example do I want to set for my children? Okay, my spouse may have done this. Does that give me the right to do it also? Is that who I really want to be known for? Is that how I really want to live and pattern my life? Right? And because you know how awful it is to go through that pain, do you really want to put someone else through that? Okay. Another thing to understand and identify is, if I'm trying to draw my spouse back to me, right? Sometimes we think that if we do a dramatic behavior, a vengeful behavior, a destructive behavior, including adultery, including withdrawal, right? We've talked about that quite a bit here, when you withdraw from your spouse or you have a cold and distant spouse. So when you want to do any of those kind of behaviors, criticism, going behind their back, anything like that, then I lost where I was going. Dang it. It was right there. But when you feel that impulse to act in those ways, understand what it is that you're actually trying to accomplish, right? And when you can dissect what I'm actually trying to accomplish is this, then you can think of a better way to get there. Does that make sense?
Makes absolute sense. Oftentimes we get stuck in ourselves. Just like those cats. They're worried about the pain that they're feeling. Sure, they may be trying to inflict pain and show the other cat how that hurts stop. But let's face it, a boxer, when they're in the ring, they're geared up to box and inflict pain. They do not worry one bit about the pain they're inflicting, or even care to see until the match is over. And that's the same way we are when we're like in that vengeful state. We end up taking it way further than we ever intentionally meant to. And we end up regretting it. And guys, don't do that. That is not where you want to be. You can't pick yourself up near as easily from that state as you can from where you are if you're in this situation. It is way better. It's hard nonetheless, but it's way better to extend some understanding, right? You want to be understood. Well, let's extend some understanding. It's only there that somebody's eyes are going to be opened to turn around and make an about face and see what you're going through. It's only from that place. It's not when you're swinging and kicking. Okay. We're not animals. So we can, we can use our mental capacity for so much more than vengefulness.
Absolutely. And oftentimes we do these dramatic things trying to draw that person back to us. And if I may, I'm going to share a personal example of this, that I know this firsthand. Okay. Before Ben and I were married, I did have a very serious relationship with someone else. He doesn't like hearing about this, so we're going to have to give him some hearts and thumbs up for being a good sport here. But when it came out that Ben and I were engaged to be married, this person reached out to me and said that he was considering taking his own life, okay, as a ploy to get me back. And of course, it immediately concerned me. I didn't want this person to take their life. That was a very, serious thing. And so I was immediately concerned for them. However, do you think that it worked? Obviously not, because I ended up with this guy. But I want you to understand that when we're doing some of these really dramatic behaviors, I'm going to divorce you, I'm going to leave you, I'm going to go have an affair, any kind of like that threatening, really dramatic behavior that we do, hoping that they take a step toward us, it only pushes them further away, right? And it only makes that person less attractive. Honestly, when you have someone that's that emotionally unstable, that out of control of themselves, that is not an attractive partner that someone's going to want to come back to. So just be really aware of that. What are the real consequences of me acting in this fashion, right? And what is that outcome that I really want? If I really wanted to have my spouse come back to me, even if they'd hurt me, or I want them to understand me, I want to contrast that I'm going to go and hurt you versus I'm sorry that you went through that. Help me understand you. I'm sorry I haven't been there for you. And I'm sorry that we have to go through this. Let's figure this out together. Let's become stronger and better than ever before. Imagine that if you or your spouse approached the situation in that way, how much softer hearts would be, how much more open they would be. And when someone comes to you with that kind of tenderness and mercy and compassion and understanding, I've seen it very firsthand that in that kind of situation, despite all the pain that has been gone through, that person works so much harder to make the marriage work. Okay. So let's just play this out in an example. Again, this is a personal example. I won't give names, but let's say that we have a couple that have been married many, many years, and one has an affair. Okay. The other person is hurt very, very deeply by that, crushed by that. This is the love of their life, that they never expected that would happen. And instead, they went through the grieving process, absolutely. But instead of saying, you're done, we're done, I'm out of here, I'm leaving you, I'm going to go find someone else. In fact, I'm going to go find someone else right now, even while we're married. That kind of, vengeful behavior. They came to them and said, let's work this out. I love you. And I'm sorry that I didn't understand what you were going through. I'm sorry that you felt like you needed to do that, and I want to make this work. And then the other person, the one that had the affair, worked their butt off and gave everything to that relationship and to that person because they felt so much love and compassion because that is what has been extended to them. So I've seen it in my life firsthand where it goes either way, right? Where, there's a major hurt and that's it. That's the end of the marriage. And then even more hurts can happen after that. It becomes a very vicious cycle very quickly. Or where the one person chooses to exercise some compassion, some mercy, some love, and some forgiveness. And the marriage becomes stronger and better than ever before. Wouldn't you say that's true, Ben?
Absolutely. And when you were talking about that, many of us, to go here, to take it just a little bit further, many of us, I know I've spoken to so many of you on the phone and via Messenger and so forth. There is a Christian vibe about you, which I love. I happen I'm Christian wholeheartedly. Work very hard to maintain the principles taught in the Bible and Jesus's teachings. So to take that just a step further, and I know we don't typically talk religion or anything like that, but to take it a step further, can you imagine, right? Heather was just talking about how our spouses, when they act out in that way, there's something not right, right? And oftentimes they don't even understand that. They're trying to fulfill a need. Obviously, they're going about it the wrong way, right? We know that. We're not condoning it by any means. But at the same time, there is something that's not right. So when they come to you or they don't come to you, they hide it for some reason or another, right? They're ashamed. That's proof that they're ashamed. To see some people's reactions, the picture comes to my mind of Jesus walking down a street, okay, and a sinner, right? We're all sinners. A sinner comes to him and he's crawling on his knees, begging for forgiveness, or maybe not. Maybe he's laughing about something he did, but nonetheless, he's way lower in stature to Jesus, because we all are. And rather than Jesus helping him see the error of his ways, Jesus kicks him. Okay. Obviously, this is not a true characterization of our Savior, Jesus, right? We would all be appalled to see Jesus or anybody acting in the name of Jesus to act like that, right? And such it is with a spouse who has promised and covenanted to be with us for life. and beyond, right? To when we are going through a hard time in our lives, to kick us while we're down, rather than extend the hand down to help pull us up, right? And come from a better place that's going to have ultimately the greater impact in helping us get out of the ditch that we've dug for ourselves, we understand, but actually help us out rather than kicking us every time we grab a handful of dirt and try to get out. So make sure that you understand that that's our job when we covenant in marriage, that when we're going through a hard time, even if it hurts tremendously, okay, which betrayal in the sexual nature is one of the most, if not the worst thing that we could probably do, aside from probably killing the other person, right? It's way up there in the depth and severity of the damage that it causes. We can help that person out, and we've covenanted to do that. But aside from that, as we do that, our lives are way better. Rather than stooping down to the level that they were playing at, we stay out of the ditch and we can help them out so much better.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. And honestly, this is one of the reasons why we were driven to help save marriages, is we saw this firsthand. We witnessed it in our own lives, and we've seen that in these instances, you have incredible choices before you. And it's that it is one of those forks in the road. It's either going to steer you deeper into that ditch and into the muck and the yuck and take your life down that path, or it can be one of the best experiences of your life because of how much you grow as an individual and as a couple as well. So let's just, I am a little comment here from Mark, but he said the vengeful cycle is what me and my wife got in, and I'm trying to get out of it. It's a vicious one, and it's so easy to slip into. We're talking about some really serious hurts here, but we've also talked about even just those little bit of withholding from our spouse, not meeting their needs because they don't meet our needs. So can all of us just check in and recognize that we do have a tendency to slip into that? And so it's important what choices we make, and to be mindful and ask ourselves, where is this going to get me? Is it where I really want to go? And if you just take a few minutes, literally just a few minutes, to quiet your mind and quiet your heart and think about where you want to go, and then act in the way that you feel is going to be the best for you and your family, you won't go wrong, and things will come together really well for you. So we just have a few more minutes we're going to spend here with you. If you guys have any other questions or comments, go ahead and drop them in the chat. But now we're just going to kind of flip the tables on the other side of the spectrum, as our coach likes to say, and for the spouse that may have done the wrong, and now their spouse is threatening or is in the process of that revengeful behavior, what can that person do? So, in these instances, they know that they have messed up, but now their spouse is kind of taking it further and further down a really dark path. So what can that person do in that situation to get things going good again? What are their options? So we'll just touch on that real quick.
This is an interesting dynamic here, obviously, because what happens obviously is that spouse comes and says, well, I'm going to do this, and there's no way that you can justifiably say that I'm wrong because you did it to me, right? So they justify it by doing that, and it puts us in a bad spot because, they're right, we did do wrong. And it can put us in a defensive place, or we can succumb, right? Those are two choices. We can say, yeah, you're right, go do it, or we can beg and plead and get angry and say, no, just because I did it doesn't mean you should do it, right? Or there's a third option, right? Obviously, they're still in the grieving period of this, right? They're definitely projecting their pain and hurt onto you and what you've done, right? But they're not looking at their tail that's got the clothespin stuck to it, right? they have not understood where their feelings are coming from and why. They assimilate it completely to you and your action. And it's important to understand that that's not the entirety of where their feelings are coming from. And they need help understanding that. But it's obviously not something that you can go to them and say, yo, it's not all my fault you feel this way. Okay. That's the absolute wrong way to do it. It's also not a good idea to exert control. We've talked about this in previous live streams. Exerting control is another obvious, no, we can't do that. We don't clinch up and choke them out, right? We can't do that. And I'm not talking physically. I'm talking about in our actions, right? Begging and pleading, taking car keys, hiding them so they can't go anywhere. Vigilante style on our spouse, right? We can't really do that. But instead, again, we've got to make the about face, look at ourselves, make sure that we're doing the best we can to, here comes a Christian word, right? Repent, right? That means turn from the sin that you've made and make it to where it's not something you're ever going to do again, okay? And part of that is recompense, right? You've got to make up for it as best as you can. There are some things you're not going to be able to. And that does mean that you've got to put yourself in your spouse's shoes and do your best to understand what they're going through, right? What your actions is causing them to do, right? The Bible does talk about how we need to be careful not to sin, because sometimes our sins can cause others to sin. And then the sin is even bigger upon our head, right? So, and that's one of those things they're talking about is let's not start a domino effect, right? And this can. The good news is you can actually do your part to stop it, even if you have broken the trust in your relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. So above all is that amazing word, compassion. Coming from a state of compassion and understanding is what's going to help heal both sides of the equation more than anything else. And when you exercise that kind of compassion and understanding, that can be the balm to heal both of your hearts and to truly strengthen your marriage. And honestly, it can make it better than it ever was before. So that's one of the beautiful things that we found. As difficult as an affair can be, we've even had some people tell us it was actually the best thing that ever happened to them, because it made them take a look at why that happened in the first place and finally address the issues that led up to that affair, or whatever the big issue might be. So uncovering what the root is and solving that so you can truly have the happy relationship that you want. It is absolutely possible. I just want to leave you guys with the hope there that there can be healing and that there can be unity in your marriages as you put forth the effort to make that happen. So any final thoughts, Ben?
No, none other than you guys can do it. Okay. It's absolutely doable. We're fortunate in that we get to see marriages recover. And what a blessing that is, and they're really miracles, and they can't happen without our work and obviously divine intervention, right? Touching the lives of those around us to help us out. And what I mean by our work, I mean you working in your marriages, right? That's what I mean, not necessarily High Thrive, right? Mm-hmm. Though we love marriage and what it stands for, and that's why we do this. So just so you know, no matter how bad you feel right now, there is hope. There definitely is. And a lot of it can be found by thinking. Lay there in a quiet moment and actually think about what's going on. What are the best actions? Okay. We talk to people about their problems, and oftentimes they start off the call just giving us the superficial things. Like, she tells me to brush my teeth every night and it's getting on my nerves, right? Well, they've been doing that for 12 years. And now you're calling me about that to try to fix that? That's not the truth. That's not the issue. It never bothered you before. What's missing? So you've really got to shine the light on what the actual real problems are, guys, okay? And you can do that oftentimes by thinking about it, right? By actually thinking, and heaven forbid you actually say a prayer to help you out there, okay?
Excellent. Well, thank you guys for watching, and I hope that this helps. If you have any other questions, we really love giving you answers and solutions and pointing you in the right direction. So just as a quick recap, make sure that you, like Ben said, take time to think about it and to pray about it and know that it is absolutely possible. So hope you guys have a great day, and I'm off to take a nap. So you guys have a great day, and we'll talk to you next time.